Warning, the following material is extremely disturbing. On Grave Matter, we try to be as accurate as possible and we collect information from many different sources. We don't condone or glorify murder, and we try to be as sensitive as possible to victims and their families while approaching a serious subject matter with a sense of humor. Listener discretion is advised.
What's up, weirdos? Welcome back to the Grave Matter this week for episode 16. Chris Lang, as always, and Jillian Gentry.
Hello.
We have a wonderful episode lined up for today. I'm not doing an Area 51 update today. We will do that when it gets closer to the date. I don't want to spend too much time every week talking about that. You know what I mean? Last I checked, it was over 2 million. So lots of people going, lots of people dying. Lots of Social Security getting saved.
I guess we'll see.
Indeed, we will. Let's begin by saying who we're talking about today. Jill, who are you going to be covering?
My guy here is Michael Eugene Sharp.
Michael Eugene Sharp. And I will be talking about Christopher Bernard Wilder. 3-name and a 3-name. And I don't know much about Jill's person. She knows a bit about mine. But from what I've gathered from our conversation earlier, they are both road trippers. Is that correct?
Ish. I mean...
Ish. Mine's definitely a road tripper.
It comes into it for mine towards the end there. Before we get too deep into it, though, I'd like to thank Teresa Smith.
Teresa! Congratulations, Teresa.
She won the Photoshop contest. Thank you to everybody who participated.
We appreciate it very much.
We do. I hope she's gotten her meager prize in the mail. Maybe one day we'll
be able to do something awesome for you.
Yeah, people will want what we have to send.
You know what I mean? But more than anything, we appreciate you very much, Teresa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a fan. All right, so without further ado, Jillian, would you like to kick us off today?
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about Michael Eugene Sharp.
All right.
He's from Odessa, Texas.
No shit.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him before. I don't know how.
That's right here in our own backyard.
Right here in our own backyard. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
There was very little information about his childhood. I'd say less than nothing. I have his birthday.
Less than nothing. Negative information.
Yeah. They took away information.
Interesting. When was his... That's interesting. When was his birthday?
His birthday is April 24th, 1954.
April 24th, 1954.
I tried to find it. I looked for his biography. I looked for...
Wow.
I looked for it for a while. And I was like, well, I guess he just started existing around 23 years old or whenever.
Okay. That's like Jesus. I'm sorry.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know that much about Jesus.
Was he there's no stories about Jesus being a teenager to my knowledge. You know, I don't know. Was he rambunctious? Was Jesus a rambunctious teen?
What about child?
Jesus Christ, go to your room. You know?
What was his middle name?
I think
he didn't have one. He wasn't a killer.
I think it was Howard.
Howard?
Yeah.
Jesus H. Christ.
Jesus Howard Christ. I think that was his name.
Howard.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful. Yeah. It's powerful. It's biblical. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's a real biblical name.
Tell us about Mikey.
So Michael Eugene Sharp, he was a real shit dick. He...
A shit dick?
Yeah.
All right. In this podcast, that could be literal, and I don't know what to expect.
Okay, so not literal.
Okay.
But he was a shit dick.
Okay.
So, like I said, I didn't find anything except for information on his crimes. So that's what we're doing. We're going to talk about his crimes.
Okay.
On May 17th of 1982...
Oh, wow. This is around the same time of my crimes.
Really?
Pause for the cause. Yeah, that's awesome.
When is yours?
Well, I mean, he was kind of a fucking degenerate his whole life, but the main event, if you will, was in 1984. And then there was some stuff leading up to that as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
So, like I said, there's not really a whole lot on his personal life or his younger days. Mm-hmm. So we're going straight into the hardcore shit. So,
okay.
May 17th of 1982, there's a woman named Blanca Guerrero.
Blanca Guerrero.
She's 18 years old. She's pregnant. And she gets up one morning and she goes to take her sister-in-law to work. And she asks her husband to check the car for gas. And he goes out there and he looks. And he's like, you have a quarter tank. It's only a 30-minute round trip, so you'll be fine. We'll fill it up when you get back. So she takes off. And she takes her
Likes
sister.
to live life on the edge, but okay.
That's how I do it.
I'm like, well, that makes my anxiety. Okay.
Yeah. My mom, she's like, I only have 150 miles left. I have to get gas. And I'm like, the other. I'm
the other end of the spectrum.
My gas light's on, but I could probably make 3 or 4 more trips to town. So.
You need to stop.
Well, maybe one day I will. Unintended.
Right.
So she takes her sister-in-law to work, and that goes fine. She gets her there and drops her off. And then she doesn't come home.
Okay.
And it's really unlike her. She's very in love with her husband, and she's super excited about having kids. She wants to have a bunch of kids, and this is her first pregnancy, and she's like the happiest girl in the world.
Okay. So, very happy person. She's the other person, the sister-in-law, or is it the sister-in-law? Mm-hmm. Is confirmed to be at work.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody's panicked pretty immediately. After like an hour or 2 hours, they're like, where is she? And then by that night, they're freaking out.
Yeah.
Her husband reports her missing, and he tells her family and his family, and they all go out looking for her.
Okay.
They find her car abandoned in front of an Albertsons grocery store in the parking lot of an Albertsons.
Yeah, that Albertsons, man. They're known for abandoned vehicles.
Really?
No, I don't know.
Okay. You had me going for a minute.
Yeah, that sounded for real.
So her car's in front of the Albertsons near a payphone. And actually, they find the car. The husband goes to the car, and he looks in it, and he discovers that the gas gauge is actually broken on the car. So she didn't have a quarter tank of gas. So she ran out of gas, I guess.
Interesting.
So she tried to use the payphone to call somebody. I don't know what happened with that, but...
Should have filled up her gas. I'm just saying. Do I have a fucking point, or what? Could we be sparing lives out here with full gas tanks?
In that case, I think probably so.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, a store clerk that works for Albertsons recalls seeing her try to use the payphone. And he sees a blue pickup truck pull up next to the payphone, and she hangs the receiver up, and she walks over to the truck to the passenger side and talks to the driver. And then he goes back into the store, gets his little cart.
It was like on a smoke break or whatever.
Yeah. And he doesn't know what happens after that. So anyway, the clerk sees her talking to this man. All he can say is he's a white man. He doesn't know age. He didn't see his face. He doesn't know what he looks like.
Okay.
He just sees his arm out the window.
And he has a description of the vehicle.
Yeah, just a blue pickup.
Well, that's something.
Yeah. So when the police question him, he's like, "Yeah, I did see her. I saw her talking to this guy. I went in the store. When I came out later, the truck was gone. Her car was still here. She was gone." Her family's like, "There's no way in hell she would ever accept a ride from a stranger. I don't care if she couldn't reach anybody by phone." So they think she was just dragged into the truck, and he took off.
Held at gunpoint or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to fast forward a little bit.
Hey.
I'm going to pull a Chris right now.
Catchphrase.
Less than a month later, a teenager named Irene Urquidy, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Are you sure?
Urquidy?
Urquidy?
Irkidy.
Either way, this is a lose-lose for Irene.
Yeah. So Irene, we're going to call her Irene.
Irene Persnickety. Got it.
She's hanging out with some friends late in the evening on June 11th. Okay. So it's like a week short of being a month.
Okay.
3 weeks later.
So it's hot.
Yeah, it sucks. It's Texas too, so it's right straight in the middle of hell.
Yeah.
She's hanging out with some friends in town, and a blue pickup pulls up. Dun, dun, dun.
You know what I'm saying?
The driver of the pickup waves Irene over to his truck. She goes over to the truck, and she like leans in the window, and she's like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm new in town, and I just kind of saw you hanging out, and thought maybe I'd see if you would be interested in showing me around town. Maybe we could hang out." And she's like, "I'm kind of hanging out with some friends right now, so I'm gonna pass." Pissed him off royally. He didn't say another word. He just slammed on the gas and took off.
Okay.
Very, very, very shortly later, within minutes of that encounter, a woman named Brenda Broadway, and her 2 daughters, Selena and Christy. Selena's 14 and Christy's 8 years old. They pull up to a car wash in town nearby.
Oh boy.
So basically, Brenda works night shift. And on this particular night, she got let off early. And it was kind of like a treat for her kids. Like, hey, you can stay up as late as you want to. I'm off work tonight. Let's go do something. And
Yeah.
so they decided they were going to go wash the car. Just go hang out together. So they pull up at the car wash and they get out to wash the car. And guess what pulls up?
Blue pickup.
Blue pickup pulls into the parking lot.
With 2 kids. Fuck.
Yeah. So according to Selena, the 14-year-old, a very nice looking guy walks up, like a handsome guy walks up. And he says, hey, let me help you out. I'll help you wash your car. And
what?
Yeah. And Brenda's like, okay.
What?
I don't know. She said he was really attractive. Maybe she thought he was come on, or like he was flirting.
I don't know, man. I'm seeing a lot of red flags.
Yeah. Well, he helps him wash the car. Very nice of him. And then after that, he's never nice again.
Yeah.
So they finish washing the car, and the 2 girls get in the car and they buckle up because they think they're about to leave. As Brenda's walking to the car, he's behind her, and she's like, we're about to go look for something to eat, midnight snack. Do you want to come with us? And at that time, he like grabs her by the back of her head, like by her hair. He holds a knife up to her throat and he says, tell your kids to go get my truck right now. And she didn't say anything. She just froze.
Of course.
And the kids got out of the car because they were worried about their mom. And so they immediately, complied. They got out of the car and went and got in his truck. He made them get in the back seat, and he made them lay flat in the floorboard. And then he covered them up with like a coat and some blankets and stuff to try to hide them. And he made Brenda get in the front seat. He drove for about 30 minutes and he exited off, and he kind of went into this like desert area of Odessa.
Okay. Which, I imagine is not hard to find.
Right. Out like where they do oil field, the oil. What do they call those things? Oil rigs, the ones that tip back and forth.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know what they're called either.
Drill.
They creep me out though.
Yeah. I suppose they are kind of creepy.
They are creepy. They're like weird ass, like bending over skeletons or something.
Okay, that's specific.
I don't know. Well, they're really. I don't know.
Cistern. I don't fucking know.
Kerosene. I don't know.
Kerosene.
So he takes her out. He takes them out to this oil field area,
right?
Desert crap ass place. He gets out of the truck. He takes the keys with him, and he goes and opens a gate. He gets back in the truck. He pulls through the gate, and he drives back to this dark area. It's got like a windmill, and there's like a cattle tank or whatever, and there's like a little pond or whatever, which is also called a tank here, so that's kind of confusing. He parks, and he doesn't waste any time. He makes Selena and her mother Brenda disrobe completely. He says, as they're getting undressed, he's like, I want to make sure you don't try to run away, and if you don't have any clothes on, you're less likely to try to run away. So
weird. Okay.
And then he starts molesting them.
Of course.
And then he forces them to do things to each other for his own sick entertainment.
That is fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up. The whole time, of course, they're begging, like, please let it go. Like, you don't have to do this. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
So after he's had his fun with that, the whole time, by the way, the 8-year-old little girl's laying in the floorboard of the back of the truck crying.
Yeah, of course.
He gets out of the truck and he gets a length of rope from the truck, and basically he ties their arms behind their back at the elbow and then ties their hands at the wrist also.
Do you know if he had a gun?
He had a knife.
He had at least had the knife.
I don't think he had it.
I wonder if they thought of overpowering him at all.
I don't think so. I think that
it's an interesting situation. Mom and kids, you don't want to make the wrong move, Right.
Well, I think that's why he kept, from what I understood based on the story, he had like a extended cab truck, so it didn't have doors in the back. Yeah. So he put the little girl in the back, put the seats back so that she couldn't get out. So her mother's not going to run off and leave her.
Of course.
And it's going to be hard for her to escape. You know what I mean? So he ties Selena and Brenda's arms behind their back at the elbows and their wrists, and then he ties their feet. And pretty shortly, I don't know why he bothered doing that, because right after that, he throws Brenda to the ground. She's tied up, naked. He slings her out onto the ground. He pulls Selena out of the truck. He closes the door and leaves Christy in the back. as soon as she's on the ground, she's screaming like, God, no, please don't, please, and he's like, there is no God. If there was a God, do you think this would be happening to you right now?
Oh, man.
And he stabs her. Just
the mom?
Yeah. Over and over again, stabs her. She's screaming and crying. And then he goes to grab Christy out of the truck. And when he does that, Selena has worked her feet free from the ropes.
Yeah.
And she takes off running.
Oh, man.
And he didn't chase her immediately. He went ahead and pulled Christy out, and she met the same fate that her mother met, unfortunately.
Oh,
8 years old.
Stabbed her?
Yep. So after he stabs Christy and kills her, he takes off to look for Selena.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, her feet are mostly tied. Her hands are behind her back. Her arms are pulled back. She's naked, like she's barefooted. Where the fuck is she going? So he didn't figure it'd be hard to find her.
Yeah.
So she darted off, and the first thing that happened after she took off running was she ran face first into a barbed wire fence. So she gets all cut up. She falls down. She gets sliced across her eyebrow. So there's blood pouring into her eyes, and it's dark and she can't see. She pulls herself up off the ground, and she goes and hides in some like brush or something. And she hears his truck, and she sees the lights. And so she's like freaking out. She's like, he's going to find me.
Yeah.
He winds up pulling up like feet from where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I was just standing there in his headlight beams, and he did not see me. She's like, I can't explain it. I don't know how he didn't see me.
Wow.
But after
that is interesting.
Yeah. So after just like a couple seconds of her standing there like a statue in the headlights, he like turns the wheel and takes off to go look somewhere else.
Huh.
So at this point she panics and she's like, she moves to another hiding spot.
Yeah.
In case he comes back.
Stay on the move.
Yeah. So if he comes, like if he says, was that her that I saw or whatever, she's not there anymore.
Right.
So she takes off. Well, she sits there and she waits and she waits and she waits and he never comes back. She doesn't hear him anymore. Like,
yeah.
So she thinks
it's got to be the scariest couple of hours of your life.
It's got to be terrifying.
Yeah.
So she turns around. This girl is 14 years old. Okay. She's just been through all this trauma. And she's in the middle of fucking Texas desert.
Yeah.
In the summer, rattlesnakes and all kinds of crap, cactus,
acorns.
Acorns?
I don't know.
She turns around and she sees some lights off in the distance, and she's like, okay, well, I guess that's where I'm going to go. So she starts heading that direction. And by early morning hours, she walks up, and it's like an oil operation.
Right.
Since we don't know what
and
the hell to call it.
And she's still naked, tied up.
Yeah. So she staggers up. Meanwhile, the whole time she's trying to get there, she can hear coyotes like yipping and howling and getting closer and closer. So she picks up a stick with one of her bound hands behind her back just to make her feel better, I guess. I mean, There's no way she's going to beat off coyotes with her hands tied.
Right.
But she winds up carrying the stick with her the whole way. Mm-hmm. Early morning hours, sunrise-ish time, she walks up on this oil rig. There's all these men out there working, and they notice her, and they immediately they start piling off and like running towards her. And the foreman on the rig or whatever, I don't know what you call it. Is it still a rig if it's on land?
Sure, let's call it a rig.
It's a rig now. So they all come running to her aid, and the foreman finds a blanket, and he wraps her up in the blanket, and he unties her hands and her feet or whatever, and they call the police. The police show up in quite a hurry after hearing what's going on.
Yeah, I bet.
And they find Selena sitting there. She's completely lucid. She's very matter of fact. She's like, they say, where's your mom? And she points that direction. It was 3 miles. She walked 3 miles. That's how far it was. So she says she's over there. And they said, is she okay? And she goes, no, she's dead. And they go, okay, what about your sister? And she said, she's dead too.
So she knew.
Mm-hmm. She's like, I saw him stab my mom. I knew that she was dead. And I was almost positive that's what happened to my sister too. And so they asked like where exactly it was, and she said it's over there. There's a windmill, and there's like cow feeder, and like a tank, and whatever.
Right.
And so they easily find it within minutes. And they notice that a part of the ground is disturbed, so they start digging, and within like 3 minutes they find the little girl, and then they find the mother.
Wow.
Yeah. So they took Selena to the police station. They interviewed her. They asked her what the guy looked like, and they did a composite sketch based on her description. They released the sketch to the media, and her sketch was so good based on her memory that
wow,
a bunch of people came forward immediately.
No kidding.
One guy, people were just calling, and they were like, "That's
all the same lead or whatever."
They're like, "That's Michael Sharp. He works in an oil rig." And one guy called. He was a delivery man. So a man named Sam Cubine comes forward, and he says that he's a delivery guy, and that he had actually just made a delivery to Michael Sharp previously, like in the last few days.
So, like UPS dude, or like,
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And it was interesting because like he was one of their first tips, and he's like, "Yeah, that's Michael Sharp. I have his address." You know.
Yeah.
And then Irene, the teenager he met in town, she called, and she's like, "I saw this guy at this time." And they're like, "Well, less than 5 minutes later, basically, he was with Brenda and her kids."
Yeah, and that's crazy. That's one of that struck my attention immediately when you said it. I said minutes later.
Yeah, minutes.
Fortunately for her.
Exactly. So, all these people came forward and said, like, "That's Mike Sharp. Like, we know exactly who he is. He works out in the oil fields, blah, 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 blah."
On the rigs.
So immediately the police go to Sharp's residence, and his blue pickup's sitting there in the driveway. And he's nowhere to be found. So they're like, okay. Really? So they go to his job, and the foreman, the supervisor, whatever, all the people are like, "Yeah, he was here earlier. He was acting real sketchy as shit. He was being real suspicious. He kept saying real weird shit like, I'm going to be in trouble. I need to get out of here. I probably won't be back." And he started giving people all of his belongings. Like, he was just handing stuff out. And one of the guys, he gave them his pocket knife, a big, large pocket knife. And so the police were like, "Hey, can we borrow that?" So they took the pocket knife. They got warrants for his house and his truck.
Of course.
And actually, one of his coworkers was like, "I heard him say he was going to take a Greyhound to Dallas."
God damn, this guy. Wow.
Self-incriminating.
You know what I mean? Seriously.
Yeah.
He's like, "Here, you take the evidence. Exactly. You let him know where I'm going.
I'm going to leave the murder vehicle in the front yard.
I'm going to have one person escape.
Yeah.
Somehow, a 14-year-old girl tied up. Like, that's pretty amazing."
Yeah. They hear that he's on a Greyhound heading to Dallas. So of course a Greyhound moves like half the speed of smell. I've been on one of those bitches, and like you can be going from Austin to San Antonio. It takes 9.5 damn hours. It's like I could have walked faster.
Yeah.
So of course the police hear, "Oh, he left hours ago to get to Dallas on a Greyhound." So they drive to fucking Dallas. They drive over there, and they go to Sweetwater. And they intercept him as he comes off the bus. Like,
oh, wow.
They just look at the freaking sketch, and they're like, "That's the guy." And so they take him.
Wow.
So they conducted a search of his house and vehicle. They found plenty of evidence. They found Brenda and Christy's hair and Selena's hair in his car, his truck, or whatever.
Yeah.
They found blood all over the knife that he had given away. So they've got plenty of evidence. So they bring him back to the station, and of course, Selena immediately IDs him.
Oh, wow. She was there?
Yeah, they brought her in to identify him.
What a strong girl.
Oh, it's not even a half of it. So she IDs him. There's all the overwhelming physical evidence. Then there's all the eyewitnesses and
all the tips of the same person.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
It's not looking super good for this guy. Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, no kidding.
So they decided for some reason to hold 2 separate trials for the murder of Brenda Broadway, which I love that name. It just sounds like a
Brenda Broadway
50s movie star or something.
Very cool.
Yeah.
They held 2 trials for her specifically?
No, they held separate trials for Brenda and one for Christy.
Oh,
They didn't hold it as like a double murder. They
were really trying to get the death penalty, I guess.
Exactly. It's a good thing they did, because during the trial for Christy, there was some kind of mistake with the evidence, and they weren't able to give him the death sentence.
Oh, okay.
So they gave him life in prison for that one. So Selena, by the way, had to sit in trial through 2 different trials, sitting feet away
describing the detail of...
Right.
Jesus.
Sitting a few feet away from this guy, and the entire time, quite obvious to every single person there, he just glared at her the entire time with hate. And she just sat there and went through it like a champ.
That's amazing.
At 14 years old.
I bet she was pissed. I mean,
I would have been.
yeah.
So he wasn't eligible for the death penalty with Christie's murder, but no such mistake was made during the trial of Brenda Broadway's murder. So they found him guilty, and within like half an hour, they recommended the death penalty for him.
Kill this guy. Just go ahead.
Exactly.
I'll sign whatever.
It was pretty horrific, though his crimes were terrible.
Yeah. That was actually that was difficult to hear.
Yeah. So there was a detective. All I could find was Detective Smith.
Detective
Very
Smith.
generic.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't find his first name for some reason when I went back to look for it. So Detective Smith.
Howard. I'm just kidding.
Jesus, Howard Smith. So Detective Smith was on the case of Brenda and Christie's murders, and he was also on the case for Blanca Guerrero, and he started to realize just how similar they were. The blue pickup, and
by coincidence.
Yeah, he came across. He just started thinking about it, and he's like, "Huh, that's interesting. They're really similar, you know."
Yeah.
So he actually interrogated Sharp about Blanca Guerrero's disappearance, and he refused to admit anything. He was like, "I didn't do shit. I didn't kill her. I don't know who she is. You're crazy. You can find her body at this place."
What?
So yeah, he denied committing the murder. He said he didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know what they were talking about, and then he led them to her body.
Okay.
So
this guy's out of his fucking mind, or so he would like us to think.
Right. I don't know what happened with this, but basically, obviously, they knew at that point that he had committed this crime.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they knew all along, to be honest.
Yeah. So he took him to her body, and she was positively identified, and the jewelry they found on her were very distinctive, and they were given to her by her husband and her mother-in-law.
Okay.
So they knew that
it was
her.
Obvious. Yeah. It sounds like it was obvious before that, even.
Right.
No idea. She's over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I might want to try to look over here. I saw a bush out of place that day when I was over there in that same area. I accidentally ran across some bones while I was burying my other victims.
I was just going pee.
Yeah.
Near the body.
So, she was positively identified, and even despite that and knowing that he was involved with that, they never formally pressed charges against him for that.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. It was a pretty big blow to her family, but her brother, I saw him in an interview, and he was basically like, yeah, that really sucks. It's not really fair that he didn't have to pay for that crime specifically, but I guess you can only kill a man once or something to that nature.
Yeah. And
he'd already received death for Brenda, which is probably why they didn't press charges for the other one.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have if he was a free man.
Right. I mean, it would just be costly, and it would just be too
redundant.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it would get her justice, but
would it? I mean, he's already dying.
Yeah.
They already know.
Well, it would be a way to be able to say definitively, you know,
it's like a confirmation. Right. Yeah, I gotcha.
So they were ultimately happy with the outcome. As long as he got to die, they were good with it.
Yeah.
I'm with them. So,
yeah, me too.
Now get this shit.
Okay.
Michael Eugene Sharp was a messy bastard when it came to these murders. I mean, he had a witness and a victim escape.
Yep.
He left evidence everywhere. He didn't try to hide anything, like whatever.
Mm-hmm. Same with my guy.
Well, it turns out he was not always this sloppy, because during the trials and around the time of his execution, they have found another 8 additional murders that they believe, were his.
Wow.
2 of them were 2 young men that worked with him on the oil rig, and their bodies were found in that area. They'd been beaten to death with a shovel.
Okay.
There's 5 that Detective Smith is like, I would literally put my life on it that he did these. I'm 100% certain. Wow. But he's dead, so what the fuck, you know?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me, but it's interesting how the MO kind of... Well, not the MO, but his... Well, maybe he changed to being so sloppy, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he was ready to be caught. I don't know. They say that sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of any other reason why he would drive away after briefly searching for somebody. You know, like...
I don't understand it.
She was a young teenager that was not equipped to be out in the wilderness in the middle of the night. He had a truck and a weapon.
Think about that. Think about that moment. What if he did see her and he was like, I just have to You know,
maybe
I mean,
he did. I mean, I'm not trying to give him any extra compassion. But...
No, but I mean, just a moment of clarity in a life of evil. I mean, it still makes him a piece of shit. He still deserves to die, in my opinion, by far.
There's a book about this guy, and the title to me is weird, but some writer wrote a book about him, and it's called like The Sharpest or something like that.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. So Michael Sharp met his end November 19th, 1997. By lethal injection. Now get this. This is pretty cool.
See? Okay.
The city of Odessa took up a collection to pay to send Selena to the execution so she could watch it firsthand.
Damn, that's fucking badass.
I know, right?
That's pretty
and she
badass.
was stoked.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like dressed up and like...
Yes, this is the girl who freaking escaped this guy and ran naked through the freaking
like
wilderness.
Flipping them off through the window. Like, that's right, motherfucker.
She's the one that made the sketch.
That's
got her
badass.
caught.
And went to the... It's amazing, these kids. There was the one story that you told about the little girl whose friend was killed in the bedroom together. And it made me think of that, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought these kids are incredibly strong.
Yeah. I mean, I guess...
My guy's into little girls, too. Well, I mean, about the same age, right?
Oh, really?
So I think the youngest was 10, but normally it was... there was one that was 33, but it was typically between 15 and 21 years old, yeah.
They actually call each level of age like a different...
Like pedophiles for kids and...
Parasite, I think, is what they're called. I'm not sure exactly. I have to look at... No.
I've never heard that.
So, like, between, like... infant to like this age is this kind of pedophile, and from this age to this age, somebody out there listening to this is screaming at their freaking radio like, you freaking idiot bitch, like I don't know.
Hit us up on social media.
Yeah, for real. Like, I mean, I'm sure I'll Google it as soon as you start talking.
That's true.
But yeah, there's a different title for each age group that is well, I'm preferred.
Either way, I'm glad he's dead.
I'm glad he's dead too. Do you want to hear what his final words were?
I can only fucking imagine. I can't imagine they were words of kindness. Okay. Caught me off guard with the shifty shift. What's good?
So this guy who was screaming at one of his victims, there is no God. If there was a God, then you wouldn't be having this happen right now.
Yeah.
When the warden asked him, do you have any last words? He said, yes, I do. I would like to tell the surviving victims here, society, my family and friends, that I ask that they forgive me of anything I have done. I beg for your forgiveness. I would like to ask the Lord Jesus Christ for forgiveness and say that in spite of my circumstances, I have been blessed by him. My first thought is that Jesus Christ came down and separated the humans from God. I would like to see that wall that separates these groups here tonight brought down, and that we would all have love and compassion for one another, and that you all build a future for us, for all of us.
It's a great fucking speech. Wrong guy, but great fucking speech.
There are a lot of men on death row who need to be remembered. I love all, and then it just trails off.
Because he died.
I think so.
They were like, fuck this, dude.
It ends with ... So
push it.
It doesn't sound like that was the end of his sentence, but...
Push it.
Push it good. Whatever the fuck it says.
Push it.
Push it real good.
That was nice.
Copyright?
You know what I'm saying? All right. So let's go ahead and get into my guy, Christopher Bernard Wilder, a.k.a. the Beauty Queen Killer. This guy was from a land down under. He was from Australia. He was from down under, and he came to America for his crime spree, which lasted only 6 weeks because he was a whack-ass criminal. Okay. He was a serial killer that murdered at least 8 girls between February of 1984 and April of 1984. So 6 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Although he did kidnap and rape over 12 women and girls.
In 6 weeks? Or...
No, over the course of his life.
Okay.
Over the course of his life.
Oh,
so
well,
what
that's
you'll
not
see
so
is
bad
there was,
then.
Right? Oh, okay.
Just 12, okay.
Slap on the wrist. He had events throughout his life here and there, and then ultimately he had this like snapping moment where his MO changed, okay? He was a cross-country travel enthusiast.
Oh, an enthusiast.
And I found that I loved this research because it took me this is so lame. It took me on a tour of the United States, right? So this guy started in Miami, Florida. Came up Florida, went to Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Utah, California, Nevada, Washington State, and then New York and New Hampshire. He
Jesus.
died.
He was an enthusiast.
He sure was. He died before making it full circle when 2 state troopers wound up catching him at a gas station in New Hampshire. He wound up getting shot twice, and so did one of the state troopers, Officer Jennison.
Did he survive or did he die?
The police officer survived.
Good.
Christopher did not.
Well, what a
The
shame.
cop was a real badass, actually.
Sorry to ruin your vacation, Chris.
You know what I mean? The cop was actually a real fucking badass.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like it. I like it when it turns out
He was in the
like that.
hospital for a while.
The police get some bad press these days, so I like the good
There
stuff.
was a cop behind me today, and I have one of those stickers on my car, and it's not even my sticker. I do support the police generally, but I have one of those like blue lives, like it's like a flag with the thing, and it was from who I got the car from, but it's still on there. And the cop got behind me and then left, and I was like, I think I just got saved from the sticker on my car.
Saved from what? What were you
What
doing?
if he was a Grave Matter fan?
Holla.
What was
What's
I
up?
doing? I don't know. Nothing
Just-
really. I was coming home from
You
work.
sound like you were guilty of something. I got saved by the sticker. Saved from what? Just jamming?
No, I just was coming home from work. I don't know. A cop gets behind you and you're like, well, I'm obviously in trouble. I'm going to jail.
Well, they have to be behind somebody if they're on the road.
Well, look, physics master. Here's
I'm
the
a
thing.
physics master now. All right. Put
Let's
that on
talk-
my resume.
Let's talk about not my personal endeavors, but Christopher Wilder, who was born March 13th of 1945 in Sydney, Australia. His dad was an officer in the United States Navy, and his mom was an Australian woman, which was very, very common back then. We used to hear all these stories in the military about how during that time, because we were in Australia to help, defend against Japan, right? Our ships would pull up, at which point tennis balls would start flying onto the deck of the ship.
Okay.
And
Is that a show of support?
No.
Okay.
Yes, but here's why. So the tennis balls were cut open, and there were papers with girls' phone numbers written on them.
Oh, shit.
And they would expect you to call the phone number and then take them on a date. Whoever got it.
All right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's kind of funny.
It is pretty crazy.
What if they traded?
Um,
I'll give you my Helga if you give me your Janice.
You know what I mean? But, his dad was in the Navy and his mom was Australian, so it was pretty common back then. Records show that his birth was extremely rough. He almost died. His mom almost died. And he made it. But the rumor is that might have caused a mental anomaly that caused him to have, as he grew up and went into puberty, especially intense.
Like a lack of oxygen or something?
Yeah, something. You know what I mean? I don't know if the cord was wrapped around his neck. It didn't go into detail about the trauma, except that it was major and that it happened and he almost didn't make it. I don't know if it's placenta previa or, smart guy right here.
Look
or,
at you, Doc Chris.
You know what I mean? My dad, his first day, this is a side story, premium content. My dad's first day working in the emergency room as he was doing his residency. His first case was a Spanish woman that spoke no English and said, belly hurt, baby. And my dad was like, oh, shit. Well, that's, probably serious. And she was in the middle of previa, and they were both about to die, and she had to have an emergency C-section, and she spoke no English. The only thing my dad knew was, he was trying to relay don't push, and he knew alto, which is stop, and he was like, alto, alto, alto.
I can imagine him saying that,
You know what I mean?
I've only met him once, but...
Alto, Jesus Christ, Christopher. This is absolutely ridiculous. So, shouts out Tom Lang. Love you, Dad. This guy, like I said, the rumor was that he might have had a mental anomaly causing him to have intense sexual aggressiveness and aggressiveness towards women in general as he was going through puberty. He also claimed to have almost drowned at 2 years old, which he was his earliest memory and was a traumatic experience. But expert psychologists have thought this to be kind of just something that he's made up over time, okay? What can you do?
I don't know. Go back in time and not let him be born, right? Anyway.
Well,
All
if
the way.
in a perfect world, would be fantastic. The tendencies that I'm talking about really developed into a physical manifestation and even a habit by the time he was he was 18 or so. We'll say a older teenager, young man, right?
Right.
At 18 years old in 1963, he actually got into trouble for the first time. Real trouble, sort of, quote unquote, because he, along with 2 other guys, raped a 13-year-old girl and got caught.
Bastards. I'm glad they got caught.
Well, you're not going to be glad after they found out what happened.
Okay.
He was caught. He did not serve any jail time.
That's bullshit.
The 2 other guys were released, and he was sentenced to 6 months probation.
What the hell?
I don't understand, which fucking rages me. Like, a 13-year-old girl, like, I have a daughter. Like, what?
Yeah.
How is that possible? And I understand it's in a different country, but how is that fucking possible? You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine being in a courtroom with a judge. It's like, like, wouldn't everybody flip out? You know what I mean? Wouldn't you?
Yeah, hell yes.
Oh, hell no.
Yep.
Go fucking crazy on him. Here's where the story starts to take a turn towards the wild side.
Christopher Wilde. I see what you did there. Wilder.
I didn't do that. I actually wrote that in my notes. Read my notes. I actually wrote that in my notes. I had no idea that was... Oh, that's punny.
Punny as hell.
That's absolutely punny. So, Wilder stated that he said, yes, I was on probation, but the reason I was on probation was because they put me in an experimental electroshock therapy program. I decided to do that instead of jail. Or ECT as they call it. It's called electroconvulsive therapy, which, by the way, is making a fucking comeback.
Really?
To treat depression.
Huh. Shocking experience.
I may be sad, but I am not stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Fuck that.
Yeah. Y'all keep that shit. I can't even handle when I get a static shock. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to sign up for you to electrocute me.
I'm trying to do this on purpose. I went to a chiropractor that did it, and I was about dead.
I'm sorry, but you want me to try to bite my tongue off and all this?
Hell no. You better give me a popsicle stick, dog. We'll talk about that a little later. No, so there's actually evidence to support that he did go through this therapy, although there was one guy that was really... He said it was all bullshit, but...
This one guy, that professional one guy.
He was professional. He was a DR, doctor. I don't know what it stands for. Anyways, what's crazy is that his sexual deviancy greatly intensified after the treatments.
Well, that backfired like a sumbitch.
Show enough. In 1968, he got married.
What a lucky gal!
I want you to not look at the notes. How long do you think the marriage lasted?
4 months.
Okay, so they got married on Thursday and she was gone on Tuesday.
No shit.
Swear to God.
I almost said 4 hours. I was like, that's not enough.
No, swear to God.
4 days.
Red flag, you know what I mean?
Wow.
In 1969, he decides to immigrate to the United States from Australia. He was absolutely done with Vegemite.
I couldn't even begin to start with Vegemite. I'm done before.
Vegemite makes killer. So he decides that he's going to go to a wonderful area in the United States, and guess where he decides to move? It's your favorite.
My favorite?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about Florida?
He moves to Florida, Boynton Beach. Boynton Beach. He moves into a nice home. He saved up some money in Australia, probably from all the people that he's killed.
Yeah.
That we don't know about.
Pickpocket.
He actually became very successful in real estate and developed a portfolio of several properties in the area. The house that he lived in was beautiful. It was $1 million home in Boynton Beach. This dude became rich and picked up a hobby of starting to shoot photography, right?
Okay.
As he did this and became more independent, he came up with a plan to use his photography purely for evil purposes. So that was 1969. He's developing his skill. Let's talk about 1970 to 1975.
Okay, let's talk about it.
He starts tricking young models into these fake photo shoots so he can basically he invites them and then decides to tie them up and rape them once they get there.
Well, damn. I don't even know what to say about that.
He's the beauty queen killer. This is for real. He
Project One Runway type shit.
You know what I'm saying? Project Runaway.
Right, I was about to say.
This method worked for him. He was wealthy. Nobody suspected him. He was a strong member of the community. He was a fucking race car driver, an amateur race car driver. He had a Porsche that he drove around, and that actually we'll talk about that a little bit later.
I fucking hate this guy already. Like,
He's a real piece of shit.
Yeah, and he
He's a
just
real
seems to be
piece of
catching
shit.
all kinds of breaks and having a good old time and living his best life.
Oh yeah, he's all about the fucking breaks. This guy is a skater. It worked for him though. He started doing it often and getting away with it. Now, I said he was getting away with it, but he still had various run-ins with the law enforcement. Okay, he was
He
actually
must have not had a sticker.
he was arrested. He was arrested and convicted of sexual crimes between 71 and 75 on multiple occasions. All right?
Wow.
Never served jail time.
Other
Other than the initial arrest.
I really don't like this guy. And you know, the bitch of it is he was successful and wealthy, and he probably could have
You'll like the end of it.
attracted a consensual partner.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But that's not what he was into. He was into little girls. So things continued to get worse for him. He, in this sense. Now, he gets away with most of everything that he does. Even if he gets caught, he gets out of it because he has a team of lawyers. He's worth a couple million at this point. He doesn't get in any trouble. There's literally no consequences to what he's doing, right? Let's fast forward a little bit to the spring of 1980. He tries to kidnap a girl in Massachusetts while he's on vacation.
Again.
But she escaped. Didn't really have a description of who it was or like anything useful that would help, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. 1982, he goes back to Australia to visit his family. One of his parents, I don't know who it was, but one of his parents is getting sick at the time. So he went back to Australia. While he's there, he is arrested once again and charged with a sexual crime. 2 15-year-old girls.
Wow.
Lured into a photo shoot. Were not killed, but were forced to do a nude photo shoot together, like a sexual thing, you know? He posted bail, of course, no problem. Left the country with Australia's permission to go back to Florida. And the courts were so fucked and backed up in Australia, which is still the case, by the way, that he didn't get a trial for 2 years. Which, by the way, was after he died. Ugh. So once again, he's absolutely getting away with it. Let's talk about the primary crime. The primary event that this whole thing is about, okay? Obviously, he's had a troubled past. He's had run-in with law enforcement. He's already a criminal. But nothing major has happened in terms of punishment or murders, right? So, as terrible as he is, it's about to get a lot worse. Victim number 1. Rosario Gonzalez. February 26, 1984, she goes missing at the Miami Grand Prix.
That's a pretty public place.
This chick is on her way to be a supermodel. She is a spokeswoman, a spokesmodel, they call her, of the event.
Holy shit. He sure sets his sights high, doesn't he?
And he was a fucking racer in the Grand Prix. There's different levels. He was more at the amateur level. But one of the races, he drove a Porsche. And he was the racer. He was a driver.
Wow.
Fucking unbelievable. Victim number 2, Elizabeth Kenyon, went missing March 5th. February 26th to March 5th, 1984. This was his ex-girlfriend, and she was a Miss Florida finalist. He had a thing for beautiful women. They actually never found either of the bodies. However, Elizabeth Kenyon's parents hired a private investigator that police later cooperated with, and between sharing information, was about 99.9% sure that this was the individual. Mm-hmm. They definitely suspected him. We'll go ahead and take a look at our third victim, Teresa Ferguson, who was 21 years old. This is March 18th, 1984. Just a couple weeks later, Merritt Island. Okay, Florida. And you know about Florida. A lot of people don't. Merritt Island is about halfway up the East Coast outside of Orlando. Okay? Mm-hmm. Started in Miami. Now we're halfway up to Orlando. Okay? I want you to follow the path of this guy's road trip.
Okay.
She was found 5 days later, discarded in a ditch.
Wow. She also like a young teen, or was she an adult?
She was 21 at the time.
Okay.
Go a couple days later, 2 days later, and we find ourselves in Tallahassee. Okay. So he's obviously made the arc.
His last leg of the Florida trip.
Last leg of the Florida trip. March 20th, 1984. 19-year-old Linda Grover was taken from a mall, which he seems to start doing more often. And this is the torture victim that we talked about earlier. This is probably the roughest one to talk about, but she survived. Of all,
I remember.
Yeah. Taken from a mall in Tallahassee, Florida, driven over the state line, and then they got a
Now
motel.
It's federal.
Now it's federal. Well, yeah. I mean, it's already. He's from Australia, but
yeah.
He super glued her eyes shut, and he put so much super glue on that it was still wet, so he blow dried.
Dried.
He
with a blow dryer.
he just shot her face with hot air until the super glue.
He blow dried her.
He blow dried her eyes shut.
I blow
with
dry
super
my
glue.
hair. I blow dried my hair. Yeah.
Now,
blow-dried.
at this point, obviously, she was freaking out. So what he did is he bound her, he tied her up, basically hung her from the ceiling, and inserted copper wiring into her feet, and then ran an electrical charge through it in order to electrocute her.
That takes some effort, and it's really fucked up.
I know. It shocks her awake from her semi-conscious state. She runs into the bathroom.
Wait, what?
So she's tied up.
And blinded.
He electrocutes her. It shocks her awake from her, she's almost unconscious state.
Uh-huh.
And she somehow stumbles into the bathroom and feels for the lock on the door and locks the door. She starts pounding the wall, almost punching through it, and screaming so loud that it scares him. He grabs all of her clothes. She's naked. He grabs all of her clothes and possessions, gets in the car, and dips. And she survives.
Whatever it takes.
He goes, well, the fact that he took everything is important because they had no evidence to go off of.
It's just like that scene you just described. I pictured Frankenstein movie.
I pictured the Bates Motel was what I pictured.
He shocks her. She sits up and he's like, "It's alive!
It's alive!" And he just leaves.
I'm glad she made it through that shit.
Yeah, she made it through. She was about the only one. He leaves. He's just across the state line, of course, from Florida, and he drives all the way to Beaumont. Gets there March 21st, 1984, and meets 23-year-old Terry Walden. He offers to do a photo shoot with her, and she turns him down.
Good, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. She thought she was safe 2 days later.
Unless he's in a fucking Sears, stay away.
A couple days later, they run into each other again, and it did not turn out well for her.
Damn.
He kidnapped her and shortly after stabbed her to death without doing much else. He then took her car and fled to Oklahoma City. So he's gone up Florida into Texas, and then now he heads north a little bit towards Dallas and then up 35 to Oklahoma City. March 25th, he abducts 21-year-old Susan Logan at a local mall. He drove basically due north to Newton, Kansas, which is quite a ways away, 180 miles. They spend the night at a hotel and then have breakfast together, continental breakfast at the motel before he drives 90 more miles to the northeast and stabs her to death.
I was about to say, did he leave her or did he take her with?
And that was on March 26th. It was a day later. March 29th, a couple days later, what he did is he wound up taking a left from Kansas and went straight into Colorado, all the way through Colorado to the border damn near.
Hold up. Say Colorado again?
Colorado.
You say it with the A, huh?
Yeah, do you say Colorado?
No, I say Colorado.
Colorado.
You say Colorado.
I say Colorado.
You Yankeefy it.
Whatever.
Carry
Took
on.
a left to Colorado. Took a left to Colorado, Grand Junction, which is almost the entire way through the state, and then kidnapped an 18-year-old. And then it's like Cheryl Bonaventura. It's a tough name.
It's a doozy.
She was, in my opinion, there was like this sense of obedience when he was trying to boss her around, and she played along with the kidnapping very well, to the point where it was they had multiple meals together and conversations with other people that were completely unaware that she was in distress.
Did that pay off for her, or did he still?
It did not.
Okay.
It did provide leads to where he was going to be going. They talked about him going to Vegas and them stopping at the Four Corners and having a trip together. They had conversations with multiple people.
Damn.
They were actually, I think they had spent a couple days with her, which was unlike anything that had happened before. They were spotted where she said they would be at the Four Corners Monument, which they didn't figure out till later. But imagine the feeling that she had. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And imagine the feeling of being on a serial killing spree and being at the Four Corners, and you would have to think to yourself, well, can't get me in this state, can't get me in this state, can't get me, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay. Spent a couple days with her, and then he stabbed her to death, and as she was dying, he shot her and finished her off.
Well, that seems excessive. You never needed that before.
You know what I mean? Kind of varies. April 1st, he winds up in Las Vegas. So he's gone from this point, you know, Colorado, Utah, down to the Four Corners. Now he's in Vegas. And there is a model competition going on for 17 magazine.
Oh, that caught his attention. For
the front cover. A 17-year-old model disappeared from the modeling competition.
Well, it makes sense that she was 17.
That does make sense. She could have won.
She definitely qualified, at least.
There is a very famous photo at this event.
Is it him in the background lurking?
Stalking her, yeah.
Ew!
Have you seen it?
No.
You want to see it? I have it pulled up right here.
I do want to see that.
I knew that we were going to get to this, and I wanted to show you.
Hell yeah.
It is creepy. Look it up, guys. It's super fucking weird.
Ugh. I'm excited. Your cracked ass screen.
Check that out.
Ew, he looks like a douche with his white jeans.
Doesn't he look like somebody you would suspect immediately?
Yeah, like what the fuck are you even doing here?
Who are you, bro?
Whose dad are you? Nobody's?
You know what I mean? Get the fuck out. You know what I mean? Yeah, super creepy. Very famous photo of him.
Ugh, that's so gross.
Yeah, for real.
Just see him like sitting there looking at him, imagining what he's gonna do, and ugh.
Shit gets even crazier. 2 weeks pass. And he winds up in Los Angeles. He's now in California, Torrance to be exact, where a 16-year-old was doing a photo shoot for him. Like he had hired her, like it was a professional. I mean, it was a ruse, but you know, to make it seem professional. Her name was Tina Rosico. He then abducted her, of course, and then drove her up to El Centro, north of LA, towards the desert, and raped her. But before he killed her, something switched. Something completely flipped. I don't know what she said, but he basically decided to use her to pick up other girls.
Huh.
You know, it's kind of like a Dean Coral situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at this point, by the way, the investigations from the other murders were linked together. I mean, he was not careful. You know what I mean?
Right.
And had already caught up to him by the second week of that month. He had already been ID'd by the FBI, and he was just freshly on the 10 most wanted list.
Nice.
He decides to keep 16-year-old Tina as his new partner and drives her all the way from Los Angeles all the way back east, back through Arizona, back through the desert, up all the way into Indiana.
Can you imagine that fucking awkward ass road trip? Like, you just stop and go to the bathroom?
And he abused her the whole time. He raped her several times, held a knife to her throat.
Gotta go in the store. Do you want some bugles?
You know what I mean? After raping, like, it's super weird.
Yeah. That is.
They go back to Indiana, where they go to the mall, and he says, "I want you to make a friend and bring her back."
No real friend will do that to you.
Well, she did. He basically had her abduct another 16-year-old girl, and made Tina drive 12 hours straight while he raped the other 16-year-old all the way to New York.
Jesus Christ!
I actually Google mapped it. It was about 11 hours and 56 minutes.
Awful. I hope something really bad happens to this guy.
It's not as satisfying.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's not as satisfying. He did die a slow and painful death, but it's not like slow enough.
Yeah, but so did good people, so it's not
You know
fair.
what I mean? You know what I mean? Like this guy needs some type of final destination.
Like he needs to go out by fire ants or something.
Jesus, is that even a thing? I don't know. I guess
could be. Was enough of them?
They wound up taking this other 16-year-old into the woods and tried to suffocate her. He thought he was successful and then stabbed her a couple times to make sure.
Why didn't he just start with that? What a jackass.
This guy's a jackass.
Guy.
She played dead. And as he walked away, she made a homemade tourniquet out of her jean jacket. And
done, girl.
Went down to the road, found a truck driver that took her to a hospital where a doctor performed a miraculous surgery on her. It was like an amazing, it was like the best surgery he's ever done, and he actually saved her life.
Awesome.
We go to Victor, New York, where he kind of deviates from his MO and kidnaps a 33-year-old, which is weird for him. You know what I mean? Once again, has the 16-year-old assistant who, I say assistant, but she's not willing. She's terrified the entire time. You know what I mean?
Damn it, Tina. 33, really? What are you doing to me?
Jesus. He kidnapped her and had the 16-year-old Tina drive the other girl's car. They didn't make it very far before he decided that he wasn't going to do anything special, got out, shot her, threw her in the ditch, and then moved on to Boston.
Just really wasn't interested in that age. That age range, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose not. They go to Boston, and Tina has no idea what's going on at this point, right? And he drives straight to Logan International Airport and buys her a ticket back to California, says thank you for your help, and lets her go.
I freaking knew he was going to do that shit as soon as you said he drove her to the airport.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yeah.
As soon as she gets home, she's in touch with the police, of course. And she was...
Can you imagine her parents? Like, where the hell have you been?
How do you even answer that?
Oh. It would be
She's
a
like,
long conversation.
Call the police right now.
You can listen in.
Yeah.
I'm not telling the story twice. I'd rather forget it.
Yeah. Bought her a ticket home.
That's incredible.
We fast forward a little bit to April 13th of 1984. We go to Colebrook, New Hampshire, which is very, very north and almost to Canada, which many people have said. Remember when he was with the other girl in the diner and they had the conversations. They talked about the eventual goal being Canada. Mm-hmm. And they kind of knew that this was going on. So 2 state troopers pull into a gas station, go in to get some snacks, and see this motherfucker in line trying to buy a Gatorade.
Really?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're like, excuse me.
You suck and you come with us.
What's your name? No, they were just like, what's your name, sir? And he goes, shit. And he took off running
really?
back. Yeah, he took off running back to his car. And they were like, okay, well, all right.
We no longer care about your name, motherfucker.
You know what I mean? They start chasing him down. He runs to his car, reaches in and grabs his gun. But as he grabs his gun, one of the state troopers grabs him from behind, right? Mm-hmm. And as he pulls him to the side, I'm not sure whose weapon it was, the other state trooper or this guy. There are 2 shots fired, right?
Okay. One
of them goes through Christopher and into the state trooper.
Okay.
Directly behind him. That's like bear hugging him.
Uh-huh.
As they separate, another shot is fired directly into his chest, into his heart. At which point, I mean, it wasn't an immediate death. He died on the scene, but he bled out. It took a while.
Yeah.
The cop made it. He was in critical condition for a long time, but he absolutely made it. Unfortunately, that is the end of this gentleman's life and career. But when he died, he had over $7 million saved in the bank.
Tell me what went to his victims.
The judge ruled that the remaining assets of his estate be divided to the victims' families.
Good. I mean, it's a little,
The judge signed a big fuck you to that. Yeah.
It's a little consolation.
Consolation. I'm glad that he bled out and he died, but I don't feel satisfied. I wish he would have died a worse death.
Yeah.
I really do. Your guy, though, it was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
With the girl and her mom.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that guy.
Awful.
I would, we'd have to come up with something special for that guy.
Man, I could too. I got that I have that kind of imagination.
Yeah, you'd be really good at. You'd have some fucking Dr. Evil lasers on sharks or something. You know what I mean?
It would be very poetic. Every chance I got.
Poetic justice.
Everybody would be like, ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That totally
Why
makes
don't we
sense.
do that?
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, that is about all we have today for episode 16.
It's a pretty hefty one.
Amazing killers. Absolutely, it was pretty hefty. We have Christopher Bernard Wilder and
Michael Eugene Sharp.
Fantastic. We cannot wait to see you guys next week for episode 17. Still in works on the Patreon, of course. Feel free to check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We don't have a Twitter.
17. If you are subscribed to us, if you've listened to all the shows, let us know on Facebook. Like, we're trying to figure out exactly what's going on with how to track this. Listeners, and
we don't know what we're doing.
It could be cool just to see people be like, hey, we listened to all episodes. I ask occasionally, like, which one's your favorite, or
to
try to see.
We
see
love
what I can see.
We love feedback
Certainly
from
do.
all of our fans. It's been wonderful so far. People have the craziest stories. So
And knock on wood, we don't really have any negative feedback. I mean,
no kidding.
Maybe like a couple little comments towards the beginning, but when we were
like,
sorting
what the hell
shit
was
out.
that? Episode 1, I completely understand. But we appreciate you guys so much, and we will see you next week for episode 17.
Take it easy, weirdos.